Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is the special Tesla Roadster podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Behind us is a AI rendition of a surface mount microchip. And the reason it's up is we're going to talk about a recent development that we're beginning to see a trend in Tesla Roadster power electronic modules in the DMC board.
And can I give away one piece of that
Sure.
article? This chip looks like it's well soldered.
This one does, yes.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, that'll be your teaser. In the meantime, we'd like to bring up an image here, guys. This is a car that is currently on Bring a Trailer, and it is bidding. It has less than 2 hours to go. You can see the clock right there. It's a 6,000-mile Roadster, 2010, Twilight Blue, VIN 960. It has a recent R80 pack, not the first generation 2016, but according to the description here, it's a 2022 pack. So just put in 3 years ago. And we're anxiously waiting to see how high this goes. This is probably one of the nicest photography sessions I've seen for Roadsters. There are 167 pictures, 165, there we go. No, plus 165, so...
Yeah, over 200 pictures.
200 something, yeah.
It's almost like for somebody who wants to buy this Roadster, if it goes for this price, you're going to pay $45,000 for a new battery. Oh, and we'll throw in a car for another 10 grand if you'd like a car to go with your battery.
Yes, exactly. And of course, the market for Roadsters still has not completely recovered. Our Roadster matchmaking site has a number of Roadsters out there. Some are selling and some are sitting, and it depends on the sale price.
Do you think politics has anything to do with this price this time?
You know, I don't know. I keep thinking about that myself, but it would seem to me that somebody that wanted to buy a car would put the politics aside, especially a car that may increase in value and become collectible.
Yeah, exactly.
And notoriety, usually notoriety improves the value of an asset like this.
Usually it does. On YouTube, Niels has joined us. He says, good evening. And good evening, Niels. I know he's coming to us from the Netherlands.
Actually, Denmark.
I'm sorry, Denmark.
Denmark, yes.
Close. Not quite the same, though.
Yeah, and any of you joining us, let us know where you're coming in from. And if you have a Roadster, let us know what the VIN is. People like seeing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first items Roadster related is on social media, I saw some conversation between a couple of old Tesla guys. And one of them had already retired, and the other one was about to retire, March 14th, it turns out. And so anyway, the conversation went something like this. Did you get your name on the historic plaque? And what I'm going to show you here is in the first 100 Roadsters in the United States and first 250 in Europe, if you bought one, you got what was called a carbon fiber plaque with signatures of the first 200 or so employees at Tesla. And if you look carefully at this one, this is one of the cleaner ones, high-res image. You can see Elon's signature in there and all of the early employees. So I asked Jeff, one of our early contacts at Tesla, who's been retired for almost 2 years now, I think, what year did they come around asking for signatures? Because he said, I remember when they were coming around, everyone in the company signed at the time. So all the names you see were people that were at Tesla at the time. I said, well, what time was it? What year was it? He said they did this in 2008. So it'd be pretty cool having your name on the first 350 cars that Tesla ever produced. And I say 350 because there's 100 in U.S., 250 in Europe.
That's a pretty cool thing. And, that was made in a day and time when they might be signing the signatures, but they didn't know if the cars would ever be famous or do anything.
Yeah, or if they would survive back then. What they allowed you to do was also have your name engraved in there. In this case, it's the owner's names. In one instance, we have a car at EV Preserve now belonged to a rock star, and he put profanity there because he's a rock star. And then, of course, it gave the car number out of 100 in the U.S. or 250 in Europe. So there you have it. That if you have a signature car, you have a plaque like that in between the seats.
Hey, Dan Rubach has joined us this morning on YouTube. Thanks for joining us, Dan. Love having you here. He says, hi, guys. Dan here. That's a beautiful Roadster.
Yeah, welcome, Dan. Thanks for joining us. It is. Those twilight blues, especially when they're shined up, they just have that deep hue to them, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Neil says, we may annex Holland. Denmark?
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Why not?
I wonder if, I know it's completely off topic, if Niels has any opinion about Greenland's vote for independence coming up later this week.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you, Niels. All right, so here's another few images here. I'm going to maximize these. This was a picture that we posted on social media, and what you're looking at here, aside from the beautiful Roadsters there, by the way, is a converted Tesla Roadster Dash to executive leather. And we weren't sure how this was going to come out. We've got an excellent upholsterer who has always done exquisite work, and he knocked it out of the park with this as well. We're now anxiously waiting for the door panels and to see what that looks like in executive leather. The car that this is going into is not the radiant red right in the front there, but if you skip forward 2 more cars, it's the sterling silver that's up on the lift there, and you can see one of our technicians working on probably the audio system, and I'm going to put my mouse there, right there. This is one of those customers, and you get one of these every once in a while, that sees the collectible future of these remarkable cars. And it's always inspiring when you see that. And they go through our e-store and they say, you know, here are the items I want to improve and upgrade. And the areas that we're focusing on with this particular conversion is a power steering conversion. And we have never done one of these before. There are 4 left in our inventory currently.
Right.
Anyway, we're going to be test driving this car soon, and we'll give you a report on how power steering in a Tesla Roadster works out.
That'll be an experience for you to tell the team when you take that test drive. I know you test drive most of the cars that have significant work like this done.
And then a comprehensive suspension upgrade. And here we have become masters in that we even purchased an alignment system, alignment rack. And our guys have gotten very good at dialing in the precise parameters that a customer is comfortable with. You know, stiff ride, racing, that type of thing, comfort, all of that. And yeah, so it's going to have not only shocks replaced, but all the bushings and all of the suspension components that go with it. Premium sound deadening. That's in the doors. It's the firewall, the back of the battery panel, and also the door seals. So
okay,
we're hoping that once the hardtop is on this thing will sound like a Mercedes on the inside. And then finally, an audio upgrade. And you know, we generally defer to the people in the industry for that, because in the world of audio, it's kind of like technology. It's constantly changing and improving. And if you're not doing it constantly, you've got obsolete processes and products. So we go to the experts and we get the most current options available. And then the customer is very much concerned in this, doing his own research as well. So what's going in this car right now is going to be the latest and greatest in the world of audio.
You know, I know you mentioned it'd be quiet like a Mercedes, but just last week we were talking about the Model Y Juniper being so quiet that they're having to potentially pipe in sound from the outside.
Right, yes.
So maybe we should start saying it's going to be as quiet as the Model Y.
Right, good point. So here's another image of the dash that's been converted to executive leather, and you can see the quality here. It just
well done.
The thing that amazed me the most was matching the plastic insert for those 2 vents to the shine and the finish on the leather. That took some skill.
Yeah, that's really well done.
So stay tuned, because this particular car, we're going to be doing a lot more reports as to how the progress is coming along, and And then, of course, the test driving. We'll have some videos with this car as well. And for those of you that are planning on improving your Roadster, this will give you some design ideas.
Neil's got back to us on the Greenland question. He says, I don't follow the sentiment in Greenland, but they certainly don't want to be dominated by anyone. And maybe the best way to avoid that is simply to stay with Denmark. And if they do vote to become 100% independent, then they will be an EU member, which means no Trump.
Okay. It looks like we're getting some political views on this show.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Not a bad thing. Dan is chiming in. He's saying, I would pay for an upgrade that makes the motor whine louder. I love that sound. Dan, there's a strategy that you can use by, if you have an AM radio in the car, which I think the 1.5s do, tune it to an AM frequency, and I think it was around 600 kilohertz. The frequency of the motor, pulse width modulation signals, is within that bandwidth, and you can actually hear it through the AM radio.
Oh, okay. So depending on how fast the motor's spinning, then that AM radio will pick up that sound.
Yep. So play with that. That might be something that will give you some extra sound there. Have another image to pop up here. In the Roadster community, there are a number of innovators. There aren't that many of us. There are only about 2,000 out there that have cars, and some that had cars in the past that still contribute. This is one of those innovators, Chris Orndorff. He is the developer of the charge port cover that he initially made out of 3D print. He's now having it CNC machined. We have them in inventory on our e-store, and I think we have placed a couple of them into Roadsters so far. But anyway, Chris is also working on a carbon fiber or a 3D printed version of the hood vane brackets. And I'll give you another image here. This may make a bit more sense now because you can see the hood vanes there. We don't see a lot of these broken ones, and the few times that we have, I think we've taken them off parts cars.
Mm-hmm.
But if you would like to strengthen the one that you have, make it look better perhaps, I think that this version that Chris is creating is stronger and also looks better. So once he has a product, we will put this out on our e-store, and you can get it either from him or from us. Chris, by the way, is in Westminster, Colorado.
Hey, Pete, is that an easy install, or do you need to take it to a professional?
It's an easy install. Yeah, we're talking about 3 bolts on each side. And I'll bring up another image here of his charge port cover. I think I have that here. Maybe I don't. Okay, it's
right there. Go back down.
Go back where you were. Keep going.
I'm all the way down.
Go up, I guess, a little bit. Up, right there, to the left.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, sorry, guys. There it is. And it covers up the charge port, so if you're taking it through a car wash, pressure washing or whatever, you won't get water into the little sockets or the socket pins. And he does have an aluminum version, now billet aluminum, that will also be available. And that is also on our e-store, by the way. All right. The other item that I have for you is, well, we might as well get into this power electronics module issue, and I'm going to bring up another image here. This is the actual image of the DMC board. And what our chief engineer is pointing to there is a small chip. This is a chip that actually creates power for the other chips on the board. And let me give you the part number. It is an LT3503. It's a $3 part. And what happened is, we've seen this 3 times now. That little chip is feeding 5 volts to other switcher power supply chips on this board. And this board inside the PEM is really the brains of the PEM. You've got your power switching boards, you've got your phase boards, you got the CIC board, which directs a lot of traffic with contactors and controls the fans and such. This is the brains of the power electronics module. And we found that this chip actually, when it was installed, and this could be up to 12, 13 years ago, must have had contamination on one of the pins, because the solder connection between the board, the printed circuit board, and the small pads on the bottom of this chip, on one of them is usually compromised. And it may last for years and then either become intermittent, where it shuts down the PEM, or it will quit entirely. And I'm going to bring up a video here to show you one of the test methods, after much research, of course, that we found will reveal this problem. Here's a video here. And I'll do a narration, even though there's audio on this video. All right. There is Ken, our chief engineer. What he's going to do now is push on that little chip, which then completes the connection. Right now, the board's dead. He's feeding voltage into it, which would make it run. You'll see a couple of LEDs that will blink, indicating that there is some firmware floating. There you go. You push on the chip, and the firmware starts to float and starts to operate. And then he takes it off, and it will shut down again. So anyway, the point here being is that a problem, and a manufacturing problem like this, may not manifest instantly. And sometimes these cars have been driven around for years until enough corrosion got in between that junction, or enough vibration loosened or widened the gap even further.
Right. Wow, that's just amazing. Real testament to the abilities of Ken and the engineering team to be able to find something like that.
Completely. And yeah, Ken is gifted. He usually works under a microscope, because as you can see from that first picture, this is a very small part. It is not readily visible. I'll bring it back up here. And you can see how tiny that is. Now, can you imagine unsoldering something that small? And that's when he works under his microscope.
This reminds me of the myth of the ship repairman. You remember that one?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's where the big ship engine fails, and the owners of the ship call in different engineers. They can't find the problem. They finally learn about this old guy who is semi-retired, but he's been known to fix anything. Mm-hmm. And he goes in and he looks at the engine, and he just pulls his tools and eventually takes a small hammer out and hits the engine in a particular spot. And the engine comes to life, fixes the problem. And then a few days later, they get a bill for $10,000. And they're like, he didn't do anything.
Right.
So they ask him to itemize the bill. And the itemization goes something like this for the story. It says, tapping the engine with a hammer is $2. Knowing where to tap is $9,998.
Good point. We have a PEM right now in Norway that's failed that will get shipped to us most likely. And again, we don't know what the problem is yet, but if it is this type of a problem, it fits that category perfectly. You've got a $3 chip and about $10,000 in shipping charges and repair charges and all of that, VAT taxes and crating up the PEM and yeah.
And yet, even with all of that, that PEM coming to us from Norway, the time it takes to get here, the time it takes to get back, the repair we do, at the end of the day, the customer's going to end up with a better quality PEM. They're going to have it faster, and they're going to have it for less money than Tesla would provide.
Yes, absolutely. Have an image popped up here. This is pretty exciting. Someone asked for this a few months ago, and they said, with the Roadster census that you guys have collected, we have 2,000 Roadsters out there around the world. Wouldn't it be cool if you guys created a pin map to show where the concentration of Roadsters are on the planet? And our team has actually been working on it the entire time since that suggestion. And you were part of the complexity of this. It's not an easy task, it turns out.
No, it's a thing to do, I guess, is about the way to say it. It takes a little bit of technical skill. Jesse has done most of the heavy lifting on it, though.
So what we're going to end up with is we've got the new Gruber Motor Company website ready to be launched any day now. And part of that will be the census program will now have a map like this. And I'm going to show you various images here. You can drill down. In this case, you can see there are 453 in the southwest region here. And 200, I can't quite read that, 264 something, 284 on the East Coast. Now, if you begin to drill down, and I'll show you some of the other images as we get closer here. Pin map 3, pin map, all right, where are we? Here we go. All right. And as you begin to drill down, you begin to see the these various areas opening up. And then when you click on an individual pin, oh, by the way, the colors match the colors of the cars. Purple means other, and we're still dialing in any imperfections in either the naming or the spelling of the colors.
Okay.
That's the reason for that. All right. So as you begin to drill down even further, eventually you will get to an individual pin, and then you can click on it, and it will tell you the VIN. It will tell you the year, even the battery size, and the pack condition. In this case, we've got a brick Roadster here. Color. No personal information, though. Your name, your physical address, your phone number, your email address, none of that is visible on this PIN map for obvious reasons. So we're looking forward to that because so far it's been pretty revealing as we're going through all of these entries. And that was the globe. Here we go. We've got the U.S. here. And then this is the big picture view, and you can see some of the quantities listed there. So this will be an additional thing that you can do with a census. What we're asking you to help with is, if you haven't registered your Tesla Roadster for the census program yet, just email us at ev@gruber.com with information. Or if you go to the census program, there's a check field there that you can click, and it will ask you the questions about the car.
Right.
And from that, you're helping us build a census. Now, people sometimes ask, well, why are you doing the census? Well, it was absolutely essential years ago. Years ago, Tesla was hesitant about continuing to support the Tesla Roadster, the first generation. And I think you've heard that from many other sources. Fundamentally, no one really knew how many were left, where they were. Record keeping was pretty poor in the early days of Tesla Roadster. And of course, many exchanged hands, and some were destroyed and collision damaged, all of that. So it was important, we felt, that Tesla knew how many customers were left out there, which is part of what is continuing their support for the Roadster. Not only the continuation of the ESS pack manufacturing, which is vital, because that's the car's lifeblood, it's its heart, but the rest of the parts, and of course the service center training. So participating and contributing to the Roadster census is in your best interest, because that is visible to Tesla, and it's going to make sure that our cars continue to be supported.
On YouTube, Niels has come back with another question for us. He says, this one's a little off topic. Why are you and everyone using big earmuffs and bulky microphones when there are small, high-quality clip-on ones?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, Niels, but I can tell you this. Maybe we're emulating Joe Rogan, who wears big headsets, right? It's just cool looking, right?
It is kind of cool looking. We do have some of the small clip-on lav mics we used for a while.
We do?
And found that as we turn our head different directions, the sound would come in and fade out. Yeah. And we've had better consistency with our sound with the bigger podcast-ready Samsung mics.
Yeah, with the mics. And so power electronics module, PEMs, all right? If your Roadster is diagnosed with a failed PEM at a service center, which like this one in that we have in Norway right now, the Tesla option is replacement.
Mm-hmm.
And it is their only option because at a service center level, they do not have an electronics lab. They don't have the people skilled on troubleshooting inside the PEM, working with the electronics, soldering and unsoldering chips, and doing what our chief engineer was doing with that chip that we showed you. So replacement is your option. Well, replacement from Tesla gets you a used PEM. There's a misconception. There is no such thing as a new PEM anymore. They are no longer in production. most likely will never be in production again because of the high cost involved to start things up again and the few customers that are left. So rebuilding, reconditioning, refurbishing, and repairing are the strongest options to keep these cars on the road. Well, when you get a Tesla PEM, you get a repaired PEM that has had some boards swapped into it to make it operational. What you don't get is an extensive rebuild like we do. And if you're curious, go to our website, go to services, look up PEM upgrade, and you'll see that there are 50 different processes that are involved, including a number of component changes and component upgrades, wear-type components, like contactors, capacitors, relays, and all the engineering changes we've collected over the years, which improve the performance of the PEM. Even if you're out of the country, shipping the PEM to us for a complete repair and rebuild oftentimes costs the same or less than a Tesla Roadster PEM. The service centers, are they willing to accept our product, our rebuilt PEM? Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
They have for many years. We collaborate with them. There is no problem with either warranty or the acceptance of a part that has been rebuilt by Gruber Motor Company. So that's our suggestion. If you need a PEM in the United States, getting it rebuilt, repaired, is less expensive than buying one from Tesla, a used PEM basically from Tesla. All right. Neil says, you remind me of Radar from MASH.
Yeah.
Christian from YouTube says, everything sounds great. Don't change a thing. Well, we changed the sunglasses, remember?
Yes.
And we're going to do the video. It's still something in the works, but not quite there yet. All right, let's see. I've got another thing here for you. Let's bring up this image. Many years ago, my son Peter and I went to the Fremont Tesla factory by invitation. We were working with them on, before the parts Roadsters became available, on buying Roadsters at auctions, parting them out, and cataloging, testing, and certifying parts to make them available to the service centers. They were also curious how we were able to repair Roadsters without any support from them.
Yes.
That's when we revealed that, well, we've been reverse engineering electronics for 3 decades at that time in the critical power world. We just simply applied those same procedures. So in the front lobby sign, I had a paradigm shift because it came clear to me what this gigantic Fremont plant was all about. And there's the statement: accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. That is their culture. That is their mission. It's palpable. You talk to any of the people at the service centers, at the factories, and they very much subscribe to this. Some people even went to work for Tesla for that very reason, instead of other industries where they would have gotten paid even more.
Right.
So what I'd like to address is this current attack on the brand. First of all, Tesla is not Elon. It's a global community of 121,000 passionate employees united by a powerful and essential mission: ending fossil fuel dependency by accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. When anger toward one individual's political views translates into hostility toward an entire company, everyone is losing sight of what truly matters. So consider this. What is Tesla's real essence? Well, these 121,000 dedicated employees worldwide, from factory workers to engineers and salespeople and technicians, are tirelessly working towards sustainability. Their mission, well, Tesla's goal is bigger than any single individual. It's about building a future powered by clean energy, reducing environmental impact, and combating climate change. And by the way, this goes back to the original people that founded Tesla even before Elon. It was the same fundamental mission, the same goal. So, misplaced anger. Well, vandalizing Tesla stores, charging stations, or customer vehicles harms ordinary people who are genuinely committed to making a difference. Supporting sustainable energy solutions should not be contingent upon personal or political disagreements. So the bottom line message here is, let's all rise above division, refocus on the mission, and collectively support meaningful progress toward a cleaner and healthier planet.
You know, and I mentioned this in the last podcast too. When there's a political, the political fallout that seems to be happening here, the people who are perpetrating the hatred and attacking Tesla and burning charging stations and vandalizing cars and vandalizing dealerships, they tend to be people who are in the center to left of center on the political spectrum. And it seems like these people don't understand they're only hurting their own.
Right.
Because most of the people who have subscribed to the idea of green energy or clean energy as a solution to problems that are occurring in the world today are people who are center or left of center in the political spectrum. So the same people who are causing this harm are causing it to their own people. It's so ridiculous. And I wish people would just think about it for a second and stop, because you're right. Tesla isn't Elon. Most of the people who work at Tesla are going to be of the same political bent as the people who believe in sustainability and green energy, not the same political bent as their leader who has shifted his political views much further right in the last couple of years. And so why, you know, Tesla is not Elon. That's the best way that what you just said. And I wish people would understand that.
Well said. So in the last podcast, we were paying a special tribute to the 3 engineers that lost their lives 15 years ago. It was on the same date as this tragedy occurred in Palo Alto. There was a single-engine plane, 3 top engineers for Tesla at the time when the company was very small, just a few hundred employees. These were the Roadster engineers that were beginning to transition over to the Model S. Mm-hmm. Doug Bourn, Brian Finn, and Andrew Ingram. And since that podcast, some people have reached out to us, first of all, thanking us for this tribute, but then also sending us additional information about these individuals. And we've got a picture to post up here. The picture here is of Doug Bourn, who was the lead engineer, or one of the lead engineers on the Roadster. And it turns out that he was also very much involved in community activities, which was establishing the Gator Botics, which was an all-girls U.S. first robotics team in Castanea High School in Palo Alto. Now, bear in mind, this was 2010. Mm-hmm. This was well before robots were, or the threat of robots was as ubiquitous as it is now, and the proliferation of AI and robotics. So he was truly a visionary. And what he was attempting to do was, of course, get young people involved. It says that for 6 years, he patiently coached dozens of young women in programming, electronics engineering, and systems integration and game strategy. They say his gentle brilliance guided them to regional tournaments and 3 national championships and inspired many of his students to follow in his path. Something I didn't mention in the last tribute podcast was the flight, which was supposed to include a 4th member, Drew Baglino, who became CTO of Tesla for many, many years, over a decade. He was supposed to fly with them. But he decided at the last minute, living in the Bay Area, he didn't want to drive all the way to Palo Alto and fight traffic that morning. So he said, guys, go ahead. I'll take a commercial jet, and I'll meet you in Hawthorne. Well, he got to Hawthorne and asked where the 3 were, and then found out that there was a plane crash. Hmm. They were also meeting with someone you may be familiar with, Peter Rawlinson, who was working on the Tesla Model S project in Hawthorne. And I spoke with the godfather of the Tesla Roadster firmware, Greg Renda. And I asked him, I said, you know, this looks like a time period when you were there, since he was one of the early employees. Mm-hmm. And he shared with me, oh, of course I knew Doug. He said he was also a pilot. Greg is a pilot. And he said they were still in San Carlos and getting ready to move to Deer Creek at the time. Greg is also the programmer and the godfather of the firmware in the Tesla Roadster, and he's the one that put that Easter egg into the 2.0 Roadsters.
That's cool.
In tribute. And for those of you interested in how to get to those three gentlemen in your Tesla Roadster, if you have a 2.x Roadster, I'm going to show you a brief video that will show you how to get there. See if bring that up here.
Yeah, you just went by it. Right there.
It is. All right. That may be the, no, that's Ken.
Dude, it's the one to the right.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So what you do is you get in your 2.x Roadster. I'm going to bring that full screen here for you. Put on the emergency brake.
It's on your laptop, not on the screen.
All right, let's do this again. I'm going to start this
There
over
we go.
again for you. Start at the very beginning. So Tesla Roadster, put on the emergency brake. There's an eye in the upper left-hand corner on the screen, VDS screen. When you depress that, it will take you to a 1 of 2 screen. Go to Memorial, and there's Doug Bourn, Brian Finn, and Andrew Ingram, buried in the firmware of Tesla Roadsters forever, so they will not be forgotten. Okay.
Niels has a couple of comments for us while you're pulling up the next story.
Sure.
First, he talks about with Tesla and the politics. He says, yes, sabotage and vandalism is criminal and wrong, of course, but avoiding Tesla cars should be okay. I mean, how else do you respond? It should be easier to change Musk's ways than the buying public's. There's collateral damage.
Yeah.
That's the thing that that's out there. There's 121,000 people working at Tesla. How much of that collateral damage is out there? I get it though. Niels's point it's true. Elon Musk is the face of Tesla.
Yeah.
And he has put himself in that position. It just, I wish there was a different way for the message to get to Elon without having to affect all the people the good people that work there at the company.
And it's going to need resolution because it's continuing to spiral.
Yeah, it really is. Next off topic, he says, I was aiming for an Aptera, but I was disappointed to see their production intent vehicle at $40,000. It has design problems and it looks unfinished. So now I might get an ID.2, a VW instead. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, that means Niels may have seen some of those videos that Aptera put out with the testing in the southwestern U.S.
Yeah. Well, it's not a finished product yet, and I think it'll be some time before release. So just stay tuned. I would wait to see what they come up with.
We'll definitely keep up on the Aptera news as it comes out.
So a couple of pictures here, staying with the Doug Bourn segment, for example. This was a picture, and I found a website that paid tribute to the three. And this is a picture of Doug as a kid. Now, you may ask, what is that contraption in front of him? The instant I saw that, I knew precisely what that was because I also built one. This is a Tesla coil. What you're seeing here is a 14,000 volt neon sign transformer, which provides the basis for the input coil right here. This is spark plug wire because it's high voltage, of course.
Of course.
And to intensify the amperage, this right here is a homemade capacitor, high voltage capacitor, which is sheets of window pane with aluminum foil in between it.
Oh, bizarre. Okay.
Standing up or hanging. This right here is a spark gap, which is very noisy, by the way. It's probably 1/4 inch or so of blue spark, and it sounds like a machine gun going off. And what that feeds is it excites this primary coil of this transformer, which is what a Tesla coil is. Mm-hmm. And the turns ratio here is ungodly huge. You might have 20, 30, 50 turns on the input side, but literally tens of thousands on this 30 gauge or even higher wire that is wound around this coil. And that's how transformers work. It's about turns ratios,
Right.
input versus output.
Right.
So it's a multiplication of voltage. And I don't know whether he can safely sit there and fire that up, because the top of that Tesla coil could potentially throw a spark that's a few feet long. So I hope he had a remote switch that he could turn that on with.
Do you think that's a water hose down the left side in case something went sideways?
That, or he was doing it in his parents' front yard and no one put the garden hose away.
Oh, yeah.
So that was an interesting picture. Then I found another one where I think I recognized one of the early Tesla pioneers. This image, let me see if I can go full screen on this. No, I don't think it'll let me. On the left there, I think, is John Bauer. John Bauer was employee number 66 at Tesla. He helped us enormously during our gestation period getting into Tesla Roadster repair.
Yeah, okay.
He was the keeper of documentation. And somewhere in this image is Doug Bourn, and I think that's him right here. And they were doing a summit at that point for IDO. And then it turns out Doug was also into extracurricular activities. Here he's being shown at Burning Man. And apparently he camped out there for 8 days. So he was an interesting character, would have been an interesting person to get to know. But his legacy lives on in the 2.x Tesla Roadsters. All right, let's see how our Bring a Trailer auction is coming along. We are at $60,000, and we've got an hour and 18 minutes to go. And it looks like the bidding may be intensifying.
Well, I hope so. It would be nice to see this be a successful sale. You were saying that this gentleman tried to sell this car last August, but was unsuccessful in doing so.
Yes, they most likely allowed him to set a reserve that, which was not met. But with a late model 3.0 battery pack, this car, in my estimation, should sell for $110,000. If you deduct the $45,000 he put in it, that puts the target price of this Roadster into the $60,000, $70,000 range,
Right.
which is where a non-pedigreed Roadster currently is selling on Bring a Trailer.
Right.
On the Roadster matchmaking site, we're able to extract a bit more. It may take a bit more time, but eventually someone comes along that wants that very same color combination and, year and pedigree. All right. Let's see what else we've got here. So stay tuned for that pin map, because I think you'll find that interesting. You'll be able to see where the Roadsters are on the planet, and how many, and in what countries. Okay. Here's an interesting item. We had someone come by yesterday, actually, to see the Roadsters for sale.
Mm-hmm.
We've got them lined up over at EV Preserve. EV Preserve, by the way, is our exotic car EV storage facility, environmentally controlled. All the Roadsters have OVMS units inside the cars. There is a control room where we monitor the states of charge and all of the telemetry coming from the cars, and it's the ultimate way to store an electric vehicle. It is impossible to get a brick car at EV Preserve
Right.
because of all the monitoring that takes place. Someone asked, what about fire suppression? All of our buildings have fire suppression now.
Mm-hmm.
It was extremely expensive to install that in EV Preserve, but it is 24/7 monitoring and complete and total fire control. And the risky type of work that sometimes is associated with working on electric vehicles, when you take batteries out of the cars, for example, you take them out of the safe environment, the battery safety management systems.
Mm-hmm.
All of that in our facility at GMC is done in a separate building in a battery bunker. Their cars are never next to any kind of risky battery work. And at EV Preserve, there's no service work at all that takes place there. So anyway, he came by to see the Roadsters for sale. We also have Roadsters that can be test driven. Oftentimes, the sellers will allow a potential buyer to take the car for a spin, for a test drive. We also have some of our Roadsters. One of them is VIN 711, which has had the full suspension treatment. So if you want to see and remember what your Roadster was like when you first got it, you can drive 711, and the difference is night and day between what your car currently handles like. And the reason you've forgotten is because all of the changes to your suspension system happened over many years, and it was very subtle, and it wasn't an overnight change. So you've forgotten how smooth your Roadster was at one point in time. So we have VIN 711 for you that you can take for a test drive to see what the difference is. All right. I think we're coming to the close of our podcast. Do you have anything else you could think of?
I do not at this point.
Okay. Well, we thank you for joining us. We're always grateful when any of the audience chimes in, joins us, and we will see you in a couple of weeks for the next Roadster podcast. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Take care.